Corridor, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Dubito, ergo sum. I doubt, and so therefore I think. But if I no longer doubt, and AI has taken over thought, what then becomes of me? If doubt has been silenced and thinking is now the work of machines, what remains of being human?
Hello everyone. On August 14, 2025, about 60 individuals belonging to different fields such as design, art, performing arts, education, social sciences, literature came together at the Jack's Vineyard in San Francisco to discuss our questions and concerns about the future when artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence. The purpose of organizing this event was to trigger conversations within real communities in the real world and to express our concerns and to trigger new thinking in technology companies where human interest prevails over enthusiasm for what technology can do. I hope you enjoyed these snippets from the dialogue and are motivated to create more such events within your communities. So thank you for watching this video and enjoy.
I am the co-founder and owner of Jack's Vineyards. We are a winery located in Calistoga, and then we're the only winery that really chose San Francisco as our main hospitality venue. Why? Because these days, there really aren't places in the world where you can find an independent kind of oasis where people can share ideas and they're not affiliated with a specific religion or a private club. And this really is all about community. We love our guests, our wine club members, and this is a place where we want to welcome different opinions and perspectives. And so when Uday started coming in, we felt like kindred spirits because he asks amazing questions, and we're talking for hours. We do get a little bit of wine to get us excited, but now, he's really done so many great things. We all know he is an author, he is a poet, and he is now a musical composer. And his music is actually based on the lyrics from his poems. Now, I listened to his lullaby that he created for his granddaughter on the way in, so I love that. But anyway, tonight I'm excited because I want everyone to feel comfortable sharing, opening up. We're not at work. We're not in a serious place. Let's be children and be open to the ideas that he's going to share tonight. So thank you all for coming. And Uday, we're very excited to have you.
And think of a time or a moment when you actually felt human. So what is it about being human that a certain moment brought you into that kind of an epiphany, realization, or a feeling? Has any of you experienced a moment like that?
One of the times when I felt very human is when you are able to understand another human, where they're coming from. And it's a very surreal transition when you actually understand that this person is doing what they're doing because of certain reasons, right? And that context understanding is, I think, is the most human I've felt.
I feel very human when I'm in an invention sort of a mentality where I'm thinking freely about possibilities and innovating and just exploring what hasn't been yet. And I feel like that's maybe something that it's only a human trait potentially, not necessarily in the animal world as much. Maybe there's some, but I feel like very human in those states of mind.
Daughter at birth. That changed the game for me. On what it means to be human. When you create a human, it changes how life is perceived.
Being human, there was this book, famous book about being predictably irrational, and I think that really defines humans, right? We are impulsive, we have so many emotions, but how do we kind of interact in this AI world, and how do we even recognize whether something is real or something is a blend of human and AI generated, or is it completely AI? How do we tell the difference?
I'm really curious about what we're going to do with all this extra time as humans. Where are we going to go? What is that next frontier that we haven't reached?
So while we are trying to figure out what we do with our spare time, what happens to somebody that's born today? What will be their desire to learn how to lead, how to live, how to perform the day-to-day things even longer? Because the humanoid will just do it for you. So what happens? What are life skills looking ahead, and how do you get the next generation to actually learn those life skills?
I think of two things. One is, well, what are all the things we've got to do to kind of steer AI the right way so bad things don't happen? But I'm not really excited by that. And then there's the other side, which is, what are the things we can really do now that we've got AI? I mean, wow, this could be incredible. All that boring stuff is dealt with. We can go really creative. So are we as a creative community going to be up to figuring that out?
With any new technology, it's very easy to just sort of slip in and start using it. If superintelligence comes along, do superintelligent agents have a motive that we don't know about? How do we know when they're telling us the truth in the things we ask them? I think it's starting now as a tool where it helps us be more efficient in creating graphs and PowerPoint presentations and job descriptions and all these things. It's super useful for that, but if it progresses the way I understand it will, to become super intelligence where there are agents that can speak to us and be very human-like, etc., they have ulterior motives. How do we know what is the truth? I think it's very easy to start believing them, but the truth has become something very slippery in the last 10 or 20 years, and it feels like AI has the possibility of making that slippage a lot worse, where we don't know what is true.
We're in a post-truth society. Truth is over. You know, I work at tech and I work at AI, and we have these fundamental beliefs that there's this single source of truth, and that truth is real, and people hang their hat on that. And I don't necessarily think that exists anymore. That we'll have to start living in a world where we can't take for granted that something is true, or we can't take for granted that the thing we're holding in our head will be the place that we're going. And that does concern me. At work right now, I'm doing research about collaboration and connection, human connection, between humans and AI, and collaboration is something that I'm thinking about a lot. So when you're collaborating with AI, what do you lose and what do you gain? What does it mean to own the product of your work when you're working with something that isn't human? And I think I have a hard time kind of resolving the difference between truth and control in that scenario. So how much control do we need? How much control have we lost? What is true? And just because the live music thing I think is so interesting, I'm a big live music person. And it only really concerns me when I had the terrible privilege of seeing Mark Zuckerberg pitch what was Oculus and is now something different. And his point of view is very much like, you know, who would ever want to go to a concert with all of these people? And it's so awful. And you could just have this on, and like you could have the same exact experience. It's better even than you can if you went and you were in a concert with all these other people. And my biggest concern is that when people like that are in power and have that perspective,
When the reality is there's a lot of people like me who love being in a crowded, dark, smelly room with a lot of other people. I get concerned about who's in control, who's controlling the truth.
No, actually, just what occurred to me was you mentioned alignment. You also said you're reading 2027. Someone else said they're listening to Sapiens book, etc. I came here maybe to get a better book club list of things to read. And what I worry about is that we only hear the loud voices. So right now I just finished reading The Alignment Problem, which is actually a really fascinating book about the evolution of alignment issues, ethics, privacy, etc. So I'm here to learn about some new ways of looking at things. So that's my question, is kind of what else can I...
Question that brought me here around superintelligence. But I think for this discussion, how does creativity flourish with superintelligence? And then building on something that you said, something else that's I'm thinking about but that doesn't excite me as much is this phrase of alignment. And how do we get superintelligence and alignment? And really what does that look like?
Curious about play and what will happen to play. I saw, I've been seeing our driverless cars do all kinds of things, and we all remember when the car used to wait just because there was another car just a little bit on the side of the highway or side of the road, right? And now you see these cars like swerve a little bit and take off from the other side, and that seems like something that's just going out of the normal. And play has this unique sense of like going out of the normal, just doing things without rules. And I'm very curious to see what happens in that space.
I think the biggest question is, are we sure that we know what intelligence is? I think people are talking about AI as if it's a given, that it's super intelligent and so on. And people mentioned here the autonomous cars. It's been 15 years in this city, and it's not fully good driving. So maybe we're just drinking too much of the Kool-Aid.
I'm Elzer, and I think we were just talking in our small group here about the human development implications, particularly for children and adolescents. And as a child psychologist and academic in that space, I'm trying to grapple with what's our role in trying to support what we value in child and adolescent development, and also what's our role in universities. How do we respond also as educational institutions?
And I came because of the word superintelligence, and I'm wondering if there's anybody else who thinks of superintelligence as I do, which is as collective intelligence, as community intelligence. And all this agentic AI stuff is really talking about single humans and single human cognitive capacity. But we as humans and civilization have always grown and benefited through our...
I have two questions. One is, what happens when breath moves through the body? And the second is, what happens when you look into someone's eyes and they look back into your eyes and really looking at each other?
My name is Suzanne, and I was at a talk last night at BayChi, which is Computer-Human Interaction, and Jim Spohr was talking about digital twins and the ability, like from LinkedIn or wherever, to create a twin of yourself and to make it available. And so I'm wondering, how that changes things in society. And is it just one twin, or are there multiples that can do many things that you become known for, right? And that are valuable potentially to the world, or not?
My name's Sid Mead. Do you know him? Yeah. And he was just one guy who did these incredible illustrations of what the future was going to be like. I think about that. I think about what are those great events they had across America way back when, looking into the future. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of those kinds of things. And today, when I listen to Emily and I listen to all of us, we sort of feel directionless, right? right? This thing is happening, not sure what it's going to be, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. And I go, well, anytime there's a problem when you're not really sure where it's going to go in the design world, you stop, take a deep breath, and you build a vision of where you want to go. And it's pretty complicated. I mean, it's a process to build a vision, right? But it's fun, and you can do it with lots of people. And so my question, and maybe it kind of connects to what Emily was saying as well, it's like, how in the hell's name are we going to mobilize and organize and get the right things done if we're not clear where we're going? And if we think similarly about that, and maybe we don't, but if we do, then how can we go about building not the vision, but many alternative visions, so that we can have good chats about where we may end up and make some decisions on what we want.
Absolutely. But there are a lot of places in our lives where there are guidelines, regulations, policies, and we were at an excellent event at the Commonwealth Club, maybe back in May or June. Our state senator Scott Wiener and others, my sister Nicole Ozer from the ACLU, who's focused on data and privacy for decades, we're talking about why is this just happening? You know, we have a lot of laws that try to avoid damage, and yet we haven't revamped laws for privacy and technology and other aspects of technology since the 80s. So I just want to question or wonder how this incredible community of creative people and a lot of folks are coming from technology, but how are we in conversation with the people who are actually in the governance sphere, and how can more collaboration make for better laws and regulation? Because as many of you have said, a lot of this is really driven by profit motive. It's not really driven by the kind of deep thinking about where we want to head. And so I just want to comment on sort of like the lack of agency that I think a lot of us feel, and a lot obviously in the political sphere is also being done to us in ways where we're just not sure how can we have agency. And I'm appreciative of creating community and conversation, because I think that's one way, to organize ourselves. But I just want to put out that invitation in terms of, not just sort of assuming this has to be done to us, but how do we kind of be more proactive and agentic in this?
It's really exciting to think about all the things that technology can do and help us make. But I really got intrigued about this conversation on change. And I have your book, Uday, over here, Being and Belonging. And I want to quote something that you wrote from one of your poems, Whisper Within. Your mind connects the dots, your inner eye paints a picture as your skin quivers within the poem, your life story unfolds. So as this is unfolding in front of us, as we are in the phase of transition, as we are in the phase of this change that AI is bringing us, a question that I have for all of you, and anybody can answer this from your perspective, and I would love to hear and welcome your thoughts, because the card I got was around relationships. It says all forms of human connection. So my question is, as we change, as we build with technology, as we get into the new future that this technology brings us, what is going to happen to human connection? Where will it live? Are we going to have human connections with the human-like behaving AI? What forms will it take? So that is the question that I pose. Anybody who can answer it?
I'm going to diverge a half a second, because I was at this event yesterday where I was talking to some young designers. So my background before music was design, product design, industrial design. And anyways, this was a lot of young designers. It was put on by UC, University of Cincinnati. And I was talking to this gentleman. He was 25. He came, he's from India. He came to the Bay Area to do a startup. He was super ambitious. He went to UC. He's not doing ID anymore, but he was trying to do a startup. And then he told me something that just sort of kind of blew my mind, because I'm not deeply versed in AI or the science behind it. But he said, I'm super optimistic about all this stuff, and he's in robotics as well. I'm very optimistic because pretty soon everything's just going to be free. I'm like, what do you mean? Because well, think about it. If robots, if AI can learn, and robots can say learn how to make bread, and make bread more efficiently than any person or any group of people can do it. And we didn't debate about the economics of this, but he said, look, bread will be abundant and it'll be free, and this is how things will be. And he's thinking, 20, 30 years. And this, so, it's something that I just never even thought about. Like, oh, well, if all this robotics and, learning become just the norm, it will change things, I'm guessing. So, and then where the bread came in is we were debating, well, because I play music, and it's one of the things where I hope that, while there will be AI robotic performances at some point, I think it'll be novel. You might go to one or two, but hopefully you find comfort and enjoyment in just seeing people perform live, whether it's music or dance or theater or whatever it is. But you hopefully find that, find something there. But the topic I was saying, well, what about plumbers? When is an AI robot going to come to your house and fix your plumbing? And he said, well, I think it's going to happen in a couple years. And this is a young, very smart guy. I think it's going to happen in a couple years. It will be expensive. It won't be perfect. There might be somebody in the background helping. But just thinking, and he's telling me, but as this AI and the robots will learn how to fix all the weird plumbing that we all have, it will have that in their storage, and next site it goes to, it'll just keep learning. And one day it'll be able to do it. And because I was sort of arguing, hey, if you're a plumber, you probably have a job for a long time, because, I don't think a robot's going to come to your house and fix it for you.
There's a theory called the opposable brain. It's very similar to the opposable mind. It's that we can keep two things in our head that are totally diametrically opposed or in some other place, and not collapse down to one decision or the other, but actually allow them to be under tension. And I think that's the moment we're in. We're kind of pushing them together, and we're trying to understand them to see if maybe a third thing comes out. Einstein did this, right? There was Newton's theory, and then there was this crazy stuff going on with electromagnetism, and he kind of held them together, and something else came up. And so I do think we're at that moment. The card I pulled was resiliency and adaptability, and it actually relates to, I think, the conversation. It's the capacity to respond to challenges and changes. And I want to give two examples. There was a recent study at Berkeley where they took 9-month-old children and they pitted them against GPT-4 level models of AI to try to predict the actions of others, the actions of other agents. So think of little dots moving around like a jailer trying to keep a prisoner inside of a box, because 9-month-old children, maybe can't explain or say other things. It turns out every single time the 9-month-old child outperformed GPT in predicting the actions of others. Where they would go, it looked to the right place and things like that. Now, the 9-month-old child requires mother's milk, maybe some baby food. The GPT, every prompt requires about 100 gallons of water and apparently starting up 3 Mile Island nuclear plant. So something else is happening in terms of resilience inside of biological computation, biological cognition. And I think we discount that because someone said to me once, the moral crumple zone starts around Berkeley and ends around maybe Stanford, that we don't actually encourage anyone to learn anything about evolutionary biology. We don't encourage them to learn anything about ethics or dual-use technologies. We don't encourage them. So we don't think about this. Now that's the one example. The second example, Mike Levin, a researcher at Tufts, has been experimenting with basal intelligence, which is intelligence that's not inside your brain. And he was the first Genius Grant from Paul Allen, who helped start Microsoft. And he was curious if you could teach cancer cells by surrounding them with other normal cells to teach them to not be cancerous anymore through basal cognition. So here are two examples and experiments he's run that have succeeded. He's the one who built Anthrobots. If you look up Anthrobots, it's pretty psycho and crazy. But the two experiments he ran, one of them was teach planaria, flatworms, how to walk a maze. They're basic, simple worms, but they have a small spinal cord and a neural net. And teach them to walk a maze by putting food around until they get to the point where they can walk a maze. Cut their heads off, and then see, because they grow back heads. The brain's gone. Do the ones that were taught to walk a maze, can they still walk a maze? Turns out they can. Turns out the ones that weren't taught to walk a maze couldn't. So where was it? And he believes that it was in the electrical signaling, the geometric signaling from the cells around it, and the chemical signaling from the cells around it. It was basal intelligence. So what he's discovered too is that if you take a frog that's starting to become from a tadpole to a frog, you can look at it electrically and see this weird spot that's going to become an eye. If he replicates that electrical signal on the tail, and he replicates the growth factors on the tail that are being sent chemically and electrically on the eye, an eye grows on the tail without changing any genetics. And it wires itself to the spinal cord, and it seems to be light sensitive. So it turns out DNA is not a one-way street. DNA is not just a library that becomes proteins, but it may have capacity on the fly as like Library of Alexandria book that the organism looks at when it needs it and grows what it needs. And so consequently, we have this massive 3 billion year plus R&D lab about cognition, and we've mostly ignored it.
I feel, I work in tech all day, but I get 10 times the work done. And I play more. I'm a trail runner. I run more. I play more. I'm connecting with people more. So I think maybe I'm in the minority here, but I'm wildly optimistic, and I don't say it lightly when I say I feel like I hold the responsibility, and I think, and I kind of recognize that every day.
Being here in the San Francisco Bay Area, we're closer to the possibilities of ambition and that we have control over different things. And I think it's almost like a spiral trap that we fall into that feeds the ego and accelerates the intensity of our control. And the further away we get from that, we see the simplicity of what it means to be human and interact with each other. So the matter of efficiency, like you mentioned, we're using AI for all these efficiencies and making money and all these different things. And we talk about, what about the other people? Maybe other people just don't care because they're living life.
Owns this land, and they sit. The sky, the sun, the water, it belongs to everyone. And so they said, well, I'm going to write that I own it since you don't own it. Well, that's happening now with our digital rights, the data, our digital footprints. So just sharing that while the distraction of AI getting us to talk about jobs, but in fact there's a large data graph going on.
And I think that humans are profoundly adaptable and great at finding that magical moment in whatever context they're in. And so I sort of wonder about the sense of direction as really being now an opportunity to discover new senses of directions that we may never have thought about before, because the context around us is changing so rapidly.
Just building on that, I think it's the same. It's the feeling of wonderment and joy that sort of exists in these moments in between. And I've, particularly in the last few months, tried to pay attention to those because they occur every day. And I think, to your point, they're unpredictable, they're unexpected, but it's standing on a beach, looking in front of you at this ocean, seeing the Golden Gate Bridge every day, and seeing those are only things that we can feel, but it requires you to take stock of those and be aware of them in that way. And I think that those only belong to us, and nothing can ever replicate that, but we have to do the work to make sure that we're conscious of them and taking stock of them, and making sure that we continue to find them for ourselves, so enjoy one another, what made us.
You never know what a person is thinking. You never know what they're going to say next. And I think that's the surprise element, right? We're here today. that this group of people chose to be here today, not because someone told them to or someone, prompted them. Yes, there was a prompt, but there was a choice at the end of that prompt, which was, do I be here with Uday and all these people, or do I hang out with my children, or do I just sit and read a book, or do I work longer and satisfy my overlords? I think it's the unpredictability that reminds me every single day where in a Waymo, you know that Waymo is going to stop at a stop sign. But a human driving a car has 16 different emotions or 16,000 emotions. And at a stoplight, you never know. And that's the moment you go, wait, I have to be present because I don't know what that other car is going to do. But if there were Waymos everywhere, we know that all the Waymos are going to stop at a stop sign and all the Waymos are going to start when it's time to go.
And today, when I listen to Emily and I listen to all of us, we sort of feel directionless, right? This thing is happening, not sure what it's going to be, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. And I go, well, anytime there's a problem when you're not really sure where it's going to go in the design world, you stop, take a deep breath, and you build a vision of where you want to go. And it's pretty complicated. I mean, it's a process to build a vision, right? But it's fun, and you can do it with lots of people. And so my question, and maybe it kind of connects to what Emily was saying as well, it's like, how in the hell's name are we going to mobilize and organize and get the right things done if we're not clear where we're going? And if we think similarly about that, and maybe we don't, but if we do, then how can we go about building not the vision, but many alternative visions so that we can have good chats about where we may end up and make some decisions on what we want?
Even if AI can do a lot of stuff, what will happen to the journey that the humans have to take before they get to a place of understanding? What happens to that?
I hope you enjoyed this video. It doesn't give you answers to any questions, but it begins the process of community asking questions and holding creators of AI responsible. To capture the spirit of this dialogue, I've composed a music called Ubuntu. In Africa, Ubuntu means I am because we are. So enjoy.
I am because we are. We become ourselves through each other. We find our meaning in one another. Through your presence, I become whole. We are made human by each other's hearts. In your light, I find my own. Our spirits rise in the hands of community. My story lies within your story. Together, we shape what it means to be. In your life, I find my own. Our spirits rise in the hands of community. My story lies within your story. Together we shape what it means